I think. So I just want to that is welcome everyone to join our that is the QTC Senior Design presentation. First thing I want to really that is say that is thanks for the QTC provide the opportunity for our that is students. This one is not only that is give the students opportunity to learn a new language, for example, ASP.NET and C#, is also that is provides students a unique that opportunity to learn the software development process from software requirement specification, identification to software implementation, include some that is detail part. For example, how the file structure is built. And all this one is what from that is the top that level industry that software development team. We know that is QTC is one of the best that is software development team in the world. So the students learned from here will benefit their whole life, will benefit their whole career, and make our students ready to go to an industry, ready to find a job. Okay, so that is all my words to say here, and let the students start to give the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Well, I guess from what I hear that member that was just muted was from a different group, so I think we could skip the dean and the senior design coordinator's messages. So we're just gonna jump straight into the presentation.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Julie, can you take? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Is someone gonna present? Also share the screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Julie got it. Okay. So hello, everyone. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's good, Julie. I'm gonna get started now. So hello, everyone. Good afternoon. We're the QTC team from Cal State LA. We were in charge of working on the medical record queuing system. Next slide, Julie. So our advisor was Professor Jiang. The introduction slide, Julie. Hello.
Her internet connection might be dropping out right now.
Yeah, I think I'll take over the slides for now. Or actually, sorry, give us 1 second while we sort this out. Yeah, Julia's having some internet problems, so we're gonna have Dinh take over the slides right now.
Can everybody see?
Yes. Okay, so picking up, our advisor is Professor Jiang Guo. Our liaisons was Shika, Carolyn, Rajesh, Francisco, and Ash. I'm Alex Dang. And Julie, I think, is still joining on.
I'm Dinh.
I'm Alex.
I'm Kevin.
Okay, next slide. Today we're going to go through the introduction, basically kind of introducing who QTC is, as well as talking about the medical record queuing system. Then we're going to move towards the software environments and the requirements, then the architecture and the UI, then a demo, and I'll wrap it up with challenges and conclusion. And Kevin's going to take over from here.
Hello, everyone. At the start of our project, we were presented with the task of modernizing QTC's medical record handling. Just a little bit of background. QTC is the largest provider of disability and health examination services. They have other qualities to be proud of, but the one our project is based upon is the fact that they have to manage 4 million medical records daily. Next slide, then, please. QTC is given medical records which must be organized in a proper manner for doctors to be able to assist the patients easier. This process is split into 3 different parts, all of which are accounted for in this project. The first being downloading, then indexing, last auditing. Currently, these processes are manually assessed under manager supervision. Reducing the downtime that manual assessment causes is the goal of this system. The reduction is aimed to reduce personal interaction and in turn, reduce the amount of downtime between personal tasks. We introduced MRQS, which is short for the Medical Record Queuing System, which is exactly what it sounds like. The MRQS is a module which will be connected to the already existing database, which holds the medical records. The MRQS uses the user's credentials at the time of login to determine the needs of the employee for their own line of work. That being said, managers who log into the system will also be given the tools they need to perform their daily role at QTC. And Dinh will talk about the project requirements.
So I'll be talking about the software development platforms as well as the system requirements. The language you use to code the application is C#. We used ASP.NET for web development to produce dynamic web pages. We also use MVC Architecture, which stands for Model View and Controller, which Alex will go into further detail later. The Microsoft.NET framework allowed us to build and run the software. The database that we use is Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. We are also using Oracle, but we're not directly working with it. We used the 2017 version of Microsoft Visual Studio instead of the latest version for the application to be compatible with QTC system. So for the system requirements, we would have a manager account and a normal user account, where the manager has access to both the manager's view and user's view, and the user only has access to the user's view. The user's view consists of 2 work step views, download and index, and both show a table of tasks that need to be downloaded or indexed. The manager's view has a table of all the tasks that still need to be completed. The managers have the ability to assign and unassign a task, and they can view a list of active users through a log. We also needed to implement a search and sort function to help us better organize the thousands of medical records. Each time a change is made, we would use the store procedures to update the table information. Whenever a task is complete, it would move on to the next queue stage, and all tasks have 2 queue stages. Initially, there were 3, download, index, and audit, with audit to be determined. However, as the due date approached, it was decided that we would not be implementing the audit stage. Overall, the application was built to keep track of productivity, and we accomplished this by using logs. To keep track of whenever a user does an action such as clock out, take a break, or pause the application, we would have the activity log that displays the name, action, and timestamp for that user. Likewise, we also have a history log that is primarily for a task that displays all stages of a task. So if a task were to be reassigned, it would still keep the history of the previous users that worked on it. And next, Alex will go into further detail with MVC architecture.
Overview of MVC architecture. Respectfully, it does stand for Model, View, and Controller. This was actually the integral focus of our project since it was entirely based on this. The model is where all the classes are pretty much stored. The controller handles both the model and the view, and the view is responsible for providing the UI. In this case, would be a managers and users in order to work on medical records. This one is a generic version of the MVC architecture. In this example, the model is at the bottom of the hierarchy and the controller is at the top since it handles the requests and the responses. Next slide, please. This is the version we were dealing with, ASP MVC architecture. In this example, everything is pretty much bidirectional, in which case they can communicate back and forth with requests and responses. And everything except the database and the web server has access to the model classes, to the model entities in this case. This is pretty much the backbone of our entire project. Next slide, please. Essentially, what we were dealing with, we had a database being handled by ASP architecture, in which case is returning a view for the members of QTC in order to work on medical records. The entire purpose of this was so that QTC would no longer have to go into the database and manually pick out a task, no more cherry picking. The entire purpose of this project was to increase efficiency for their workflow. On top of this, this is actually one of our biggest learning challenges, as almost none of us had any experience with MVC architecture. But this entire layout actually taught us three important things: reusability, security, and modularity. There were times where we had to send each other pieces of code, and thanks to this architecture, we could literally just plug it into a separate file and run the entire code on its own. We didn't have to just, rebuild everything from scratch. So this is what we ended up with. Next slide, please. So this is what we ended up doing for the manager's view. At the top, we do have search filters. We can filter by date, by work step, who it's assigned to, and the task status even. Each row represents a task that's being worked on. In this case, a manager can unassign or even reassign cases. Next slide, please. And this is what we ended up doing for the user view. The most important part of the section is the Get Next Worked Item button. In this case, this eliminates the need for users having to go into the entire catalog and once again manually just picking out a random task. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So yeah, the most important button would be the Get Next Worked Item. This enables a user to essentially just get a task automatically, reducing the time that it takes to look up a new task. But I'm going to let Julie go into the demo for this. Julie?
So before I start the demo, I just want to make sure, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Julie, if you could speak up just a little louder or turn your mic up just a little bit.
Okay. So running the program will open the appropriate view for the user, which in this case is a manager who is also a user. So right now I'm going to show you the manager view, more specifically how the entries are being displayed and how the filters in the header and the unassigned buttons in the action column work. So the manager view will display all of the entries in the database. The page is currently showing the first 5 entries, and if I click on this drop-down list, I can choose to select a specific amount of entries that I want to display on one page. So for example, if I click on 10, it will display the first 10 entries, or if I click on all, it will display all of the entries on one page. Also, pagination buttons. So instead of displaying a certain amount of entries on one page, you can choose to go to the next page and then back to the previous page. The manager view also has filters. The first one is a search filter that will allow you to search for entries in the table. There is a filter for DOA and DOR, which will give the option to filter the entries to display those that have either a date of appointment or a date of request. The default selection is DOR. What the entries are currently filtered by. If I change it to DOA and click on search, it will be filtered again. So there is also a button that will reset the filter selections when clicked on. The from and to filters are date selections. So if I select between March 4th and March 11, for example, and click on search, it will display the entries that have a DOR between these dates. Also, the page currently only shows entries that are within range of the past 30 days. My database currently has 12 entries, but it's only displaying the 10 entries that are within range. If I select an earlier date from the from date filter, it will display the rest of the entries, making the total number of entries show 12. The work step filter will filter the entries by download, index, or audit. So currently all of the entries in the database have download as their work step. So if I click on download, for example, display the same entries. Clicking on index will display the entries that have index as their work step, but since all of the entries are for download, the table doesn't display anything. And similarly, the same thing will happen for the audit selection. Status filter will filter the entries by their status. So for example, if I click on new, then click search, entries to display only those that have new as their status, which is currently all of the entries. And the same thing will happen for the other status selections. So now we have the unassign and assign buttons in the action column. We have only implemented the unassign button, so if I click on it, this pop-up window that will ask if I'm sure that I want to unassign this task. If I press confirm, immediately unassign the task and change and then the unassign button in the action column will then change to an assign button, and the status will also change to new if it was a different status before. So because the current user is a manager who is also a user, the switch view button will be visible to them, which will allow them to switch to the user view. So in the user view, I will be showing you how we differentiate the views from each work step and how the status and get next work item buttons work. So the user view has a filter for selecting the work step. Right now it's displaying the download view by default. Selecting a different work step from the work step filter in the manager view will carry over to the user view. So clicking on the index view will display index as their work step, which is none of the entries right now. And similarly, the same thing will happen when I switch back to the download view. So if an entry has new as its status, the action column will display a start button. Clicking on the start button will change to in. It will also replace the button with the substatus selections dropdown and a complete button. So these substatuses are specific to the download step. The other steps will have their own substatus selections. Clicking on a substatus option will pop up a window that will ask if I'm sure if I want to change the substatus, and clicking on confirm will change the substatus and also replace the complete button with the resume button instead. So clicking on the resume button will reset the drop of the substatuses and also display the complete button again in the column. So clicking on complete will set the status to complete and also set the entries work step to index, which means it will now display in the index view as a new entry when that entry is assigned to a user. It will also display in the manager view when you select index as a work step. So clicking on complete will also update the count or the number of tasks completed today, which is displayed on the top left of the page. So this displays the count of entries that have complete as their status. So now for the Get Next Work Item button, you can see that the number of entries that is being displayed is 11 instead of the total number of entries in the database, which is 12. This is because I had unassigned a user before, so it is not displaying the unassigned entry. When I click on the Get Next Work Item button, it will add a new entry because it is assigning the user that was unassigned a new work item. So you can see that the number of entries is now back to 12. The previously unassigned entry is now displaying with assigned as its status. So now if I go back to the manager view, we'll see that the unassigned task now has a user assigned to it again. So clicking on the Get Next Work Item created a new entry for the index step that is unassigned. So I'm going to assign it. I switch to the user view. It will now display the entry in the index view. This concludes the demo. So next, Alex will discuss the challenges we faced while working on the project.
Okay, so challenges. First challenge we had was the requirements. When we were initially presented with the requirements, it was simply an Excel sheet, and it had features scrambled from different parts of the projects in different rows. This in turn led to our liaison meetings, primarily consisting of Q&A sessions between the business and the software teams, discussing the requirements. In addition, the project moved away from purely being a medical record application to a generic one that can be applied to other workflows as well. The team had to keep this in mind as we were developing, and this led to some difficulties with the requirements. This was relieved during our weekly meetings when we met with the QTC team to discuss and determine whether or not the requirements were still plausible. Then, as the team awaited further clarification of the requirements, we had to tackle an unfamiliar tech stack. In Cal State LA, we primarily used Java and SQL. Some of us had some experience with Python and JavaScript, but no one had any experience with C# or ASP.NET. This led to the team reviewing the languages throughout the project. And this actually carried over to after the requirements were cleaned up and we actually started developing the projects. With some examples provided by the QTC team, we discovered that the file structure was quite different from what we reviewed on our own. With the project having been broken up to multiple layers, learning what each layer did and what was supposed to go into each of them was a whole nother challenge. And with some guidance, we were able to understand how everything worked and mastered the language. Our liaison, Francisco, was there to answer any technical questions we had, and we were able to pull through, but possibly driving him mad in the process with some of our questions. Next, there was learning and utilizing the sprint cycle effectively. Since the team had little to no understanding of the agile software development, we had some issues writing the stories and dealing with blocks throughout the project. In one event of a major block being overlooked for too long, the team had to double down and make up for some lost time in the second semester. Thankfully, the team was able to come together and get caught up. The last challenge that the team faced was with version control. Initially, we planned on using GitHub, but upon creation of the repository, the project would work on one computer but not another. After a lot of troubleshooting with no success, the team finally decided to upload the updated project to Google Drive, and one member would hold on to the completed code for each sprint. The team learned a lot from this project. We learned a new line. Oh, sorry. Next slide. The team learned a lot from this project. We learned a new language that can be used to further our careers. We learned and applied the agile software development, how to write stories, how to plan sprint cycles. Additionally, I must extend my thanks to Matt of the QTC team and QTC in general for giving us a presentation on it. We gained a real-world experience on how a project begins from an idea and makes its way to reality. In the end, we added many skills to our repertoire to aid us in our future. Thank you to the members of QTC and the faculty of Cal State LA for giving us the opportunity to work on this project. And rest assured, what we learned will not be wasted. Thank you. And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for the team. Did a wonderful job. Gave a good presentation. Any comments?
It's Nader. Great job, team. Just from yesterday, you guys did a great job yesterday, but from yesterday to today, it's even that much better. So great job in practicing, updating the slide deck based on our feedback, and you guys you took a lot of the suggestions that your faculty as well as QTC team provided, and you did a great job. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nader. We know you are very busy. We really appreciate you attend our that yesterday that is practice time. Really appreciate. Yeah, thank you. And
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shika or Rajesh and team, or Harlan and Francisco. Any comments any of you guys have before we conclude?
This is Harlan.
Sorry, go ahead, Harlan.
Sorry, I just wanted to thank you guys for all of your efforts and seeing the progress and journey with you. You guys did an excellent job. I really do appreciate it. And the medical records team appreciates it as well.
Yeah, and I'd like to echo what Nader and Harlan said, that you guys did a wonderful job in your presentation. And at least for me, from meeting you guys on day one and, you know, understanding your personalities, especially those who are more on the introvertish side of the house, to watching you go from, don't take this the wrong way, seeming almost scared to death, to ask a question, to becoming comfortable and understanding that questions will lead you down the path to the answers to get the final product that you're looking for. And just listening to you present now, it's almost like night and day. Great job and great progress.
Yeah, this Rajesh here. One comment I'd like to add is even on the technology side, of course, in your presentation, you mentioned learning about MVC, and MVC is very broadly utilized framework in the industry. So that's a good skill set to have. But as part of this project, you also went through some of the things like the QTC framework on top of MVC, and the way all of the team members were able to learn MVC as well as implement the QTC framework on top of that, that was absolutely fantastic and plausible. So great job there, and picking up, learning, and then to be able to implement it, and at the same time addressing all the challenges. Congratulations in achieving this objective. So great job. Thank you.
Also, Nader, this is Raj Pamola. Thank you for being there for us for many years. I want you to be back next year too. Hope to see you physically at campus.
Definitely, Dr. Pamola. Great to talk with you and look forward to it. Sorry with the COVID-19, but again, great job in doing it remote. Again, to all of Cal State LA, stay safe. Thanks again, Dr. Pamola.
So we are already making our list for next year, so I'll bug you again.
You got it. Thank you so much, sir.
Well, thank you very much for the QTC team. And thank you for your that is patient. That is, I know that our students just work out the classroom, and you gave us the opportunity. So students this is their first company to work with. We really appreciate the technical expert, and especially this is world top level that is software developers helped our students. Our students definitely learned a lot, benefit their whole life, benefit their career. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your guidance with the team as well during this project. Thanks again. Great. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it. Team members, best of luck to you as you finish school and your next journey. Thanks again, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.